And we're live. I hope everyone can hear me. I don't have any way to test my mic today. So we've got a little bit different of a setup today, April 3rd, 2026. First Friday of the month, 12 noon. Welcome to the Abandoned Mine Reclamation Chronicles. I'm going to give people just another minute here to get in. And just wanted to drop in with a live thing real quick saying that we are actually going to show a pre-recording today with Carla Ruddock of Mountain Watershed Association, but we will be answering questions and talking with people live in the comments, including Carla. She's going to be here in the background talking to everyone. And so with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and play our pre-recorded video for everyone to enjoy, and I'll see you in the comments.
All right. Well, we're live again this afternoon here, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Pennsylvania Abandoned Mine Reclamation Chronicles, which is a one-of-a-kind podcast that converses with passionate, community-minded partners and highlights outstanding reclamation and community cleanup efforts and cleaning up our abandoned mine drainage impacted waterways and doing stream improvement projects and successes, and a time to share emergent ideas and technologies to reclaim our abandoned mines and our legacy pollution problems we have here in Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Bobby Hughes, and the Executive Director for the Eastern Pennsylvania Coalition for Abandoned Mine Reclamation, and I'm here with my co-host, Ann Damon, with the Western Pennsylvania Coalition for Abandoned Mine Reclamation as well, and Carla Ruddock is our guest here for our pre-recorded episodes, just so we can have it as a backup, but we are sure want to get out the word and the work that she is doing with Mountain Watershed Association as the Director of Conservation. So, with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ann.
All right, thanks, Bobby. I think first and foremost, we want to thank the Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds for underwriting the first 12 episodes of our podcast. Normally, as Bobby said, normally it would be live streamed, and this episode is being pre recorded. All of our previous episodes have been archived at both the Epcammer and Whipcammer YouTube channels, and they were all live streamed on our YouTube channels as well as Facebook pages as well. And so we're hopeful that these personal interviews with people from our abandoned mine reclamation community discussing timely topics related to abandoned mine reclamation will engage our audience at a whole new level. And we do like to see questions and comments from our audience. And hopefully, if you, I guess, kind of like make this pre-recording a live stream at some point, we'll be able to engage you with a chat on our platforms as well. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Bobby so we can hear a little bit of background on our guest, Carla Ruddock, with her bio. So thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Ann. Here I'd like to welcome our good friend Carla Ruddock that both of us have worked with for probably, well, seems like more than 2 decades. I lost count of how many times we've worked together and visited the Mountain Watershed Association during a number of conferences over the years as we ventured west out here from the anthracite region to Western PA. But give you a little bit of background on Carla. As a young person, she's always wanted to be outdoors and enjoy nature's vast beauty. And as Carla continued to learn and experience more, she knew that's where she belonged. She attended Cal University of Pennsylvania, that's now Penn West, California, and she earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental Sciences with a concentration in pollution control back in 1999. She served for 2 years with the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps at two different host sites, and then she spent 8 years working for the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, another partner of ours, and that was before she joined Mountain Watershed Association. She has spent the last 15 years working for Mountain Watershed Association, is currently their Director of Conservation, where she's responsible for the oversight and management of Mountain Watershed's AMD treatment systems, the Mountain Watershed, their extensive sampling program that includes chemical, biological, and bacterial sampling for AMD and also non-AMD issues that are in the Youghiogheny River watershed. So Youghiogheny is another one of those rivers that across Pennsylvania, we have several of them that just you got to pronounce them before you say them, and that's what I hope I got right here today.
You did.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, so welcome, Carla. Thank you for the little bit of a bio there. And what we like to do first is to get to know our guest a little bit more on a personal level. As Bobby said, he and I have both known you for a really long time, but I think probably some of our audience doesn't know you yet. So would you tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you came from, your family, and any connection you have to mining, whether that be abandoned or active mining, and sort of your upbringing and how you got into abandoned mine reclamation?
Okay, sure. Great. Thanks for having me, first off. I guess I originated from a small town in Indiana County, Homer City, Pennsylvania, most known for its former power plant and now the potential for the data center. So if you've heard of Homer City, it's probably because of one of those two reasons. Other than that, it's a very small little community. But that's where I was born and raised. Spent a lot of time at the community pool growing up because I did have, like I said, a love for water. So I've always been attracted, to the water, and that's kind of where I got my roots. I really didn't have a big connection to mining. My grandfather, I found out, did work in the coal mines, but I actually never met him because he had passed before I was even born. So I don't have that direct family link that a lot of people do. And I think my passion behind it really didn't start as mining. It was more about just clean water, wanting clean water and for recreational purposes, and also the aesthetic beauty of nature photography, which I enjoy doing as well. So my interest in the area started out as improved water quality. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. It's good to know. We wanted to see, like, the experiences that you've sort of gained just through your career and with AmeriCorps and the Mountain Service Corps, the VISTA program, the Volunteers in Service to America. A lot of folks may have started like where you did, and I know we host and sponsor many of those types of positions here when funding is available, that allows us to bring them on, almost like extended internship programs to give them on the job training and get them some technical background and some skills and soft skills, and really helping to be the boots on the ground that we need. Can you give us a little bit more background on that service that you had and where a few of those places were that you worked in? And is the Service Corps like still working out in the watershed or in the surrounding areas in Western PA?
Yeah, sure. I can start with the service that I did. I started my first year. I did one term of service with the Cambria County Conservation District over in Cambria County around Ebensburg, Pennsylvania, where I had worked on a variety of projects. Watershed assessment of the Clearfield Creek for the Clearfield Creek watershed was probably one of the biggest projects that I worked on, and it was an experience that I had never gotten to have before. I worked hand in hand with a project consultant. Spent a lot of time in their office mapping out where we were going to go, and then out in the stream, trudging through the streams. I mean, we walked every mile of that stream as we were hiking through, doing different elevations, water chemistry, all kinds of different things like that. But another project I did with them, which was the repetitive loss for flooding. And anyone that's familiar with the Johnstown area, they had a lot of flood issues over the years, and it was the repetitive loss program. So we were out surveying properties that had been flooded more than twice, I think within a 10-year period. And so the Johnstown area had a lot of those projects, a lot of those areas that needed to be checked out and surveyed. So I did that solely for the conservation district. And then after my first year, I wanted to get even more experience. So I did a second year of AmeriCorps, but I changed service sites again so I could get a diversity of experiences. And I went over to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, and it was in the infancy of its watershed conservation program at the time. So I was a part of their initial team when that group got started. And so I didn't really have any big like one-on-one projects like that I did, but I did do a whole lot of projects where we're out meeting and dealing with issues all over Western Pennsylvania with different watershed groups. So getting out and providing the technical assistance aspect with them. And as far as the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps, Mountain Watershed Association does still host an AmeriCorps member within our office, and it is a great partnership that the Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps provides to local nonprofits, especially to our watershed groups and some of the surrounding county conservation districts that are also able to get those members. But that program, we're guaranteed to have the member this year, but that program is in jeopardy due to the federal budget cuts that have happened. And right now there's no guarantee that beyond this program year that the program is going to continue. It's a real shame because it does give young professionals that opportunity to get out and get the experiences that employers want to have while serving their communities and doing good work, that will benefit their communities in the long run.
Yeah, that's so true. I know even with our AmeriCorps that are both state and national and Vista programs that they're involved with, they've just been a great addition, to not only the staff that are here, but providing the type of field work and legwork and capacity that we need to do more outreach, to do some of our social media, some of our marketing, and a lot of our monitoring. And we've reached out as to be an advocate for that particular program and show just how valuable they are, because it's more difficult for some nonprofits to look for funding for the support of full-time staff, let alone part-time staff. But if you can get an AmeriCorps that's going to do it for community service for the year or up to 2 or 3 years, that is so valuable. And then they get the benefits of, their Ed Award and the stipend that goes along with it, and the relationships that they can build within the communities that they've done, obviously, with you, and that they're doing with other groups across the state. So I know that it's a program, and those are programs that we want to continue to strongly advocate for in the future here. And we're hoping in 26 that program sticks around and we can continue to, host and sponsor those positions as, full-time or part-time positions that might come in for the service work that we desperately need them all to be working on.
Yeah, I'll follow up too that, what a tragedy it would be to lose that program. That it's really the start of so many his career, start of Carla's career. I did 3 years of AmeriCorps Vista. Mike at Epcamer started with AmeriCorps.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us, Missy Reckner, if everyone knows her, really influential, people who have been around since kind of like the whole beginning of Pennsylvania's watershed movement. Where we started was the AmeriCorps program. Mm-hmm. So it would really be a tragedy to lose it. And so my next question then is, now we have, Carla has spent so many years, first volunteer, probably a mentor for some of these younger AmeriCorps that come through Mountain Watershed. But Carla, who were your mentors early in your career that helped you get to where you are today?
All right. There's 2 big names, I think, that have really helped me. And the first one is the great Mark Keelar.
Oh,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very dear friend that have recently passed.
Yeah.
but his influence and his belief in me and his backing of me when I was at the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy, and just getting to work under, alongside of him, a great personality, extremely knowledgeable in the abandoned mine reclamation community. It was, an honor to work with Mark. And then obviously, Bev Raverman from the Mountain Watershed Association. Um, she gave me the opportunity to, expand my wings and really get a chance to dive deep into the abandoned mine reclamation world when I came on staff at Mountain Watershed Association.
Yeah, I think we both can, all of us can agree, what Mark's influence has been on a number of us. Mark was the first, he was the regional coordinator when I first started with EPCAMR and came out to support the chartering of our organization when I was beginning to work with the Pocono Northeast Resource Conservation Development Council and a number of our watershed partners and conservation districts out here. So at our first conference on abandoned mine reclamation back in 1996, Mark had come out and we really hit it off, and he gave a great presentation and helped us move along with some other members of the WIPCAMR board at that time, as a matter of fact, since you guys have been around a little bit longer than we have. But Mark's influence and mentorship was just amazing, and we hit it off real well. And it's, as an aside, it's kind of funny because Mark and I were the first coordinators prior to Andy McAllister and coming on, and there was some regional coordinators prior to Andy. But Mark and I went down to the first training at Fort Indian Town Gap for the watershed specialist class, the first cohort, and that's where one of our previous interviewees, Tom Clark, was in that first class, and so he got to see me and Mark in action, in his first year of coming into the conservation district sort of watershed specialist position. And years and years later, not only did Mark and I hit it off, Tom and I hit it off, and we're like best friends. So it's kind of come full circle that these folks that are in our community get along so well, and they're just, their mentorship and their advice and their, humor really goes a long way, and you can tell it shows. And you talk about Bev, and I'd love to hear more about, as you spent your 10 years with Mount Watershed, a little bit of history on the organization and the influence that she may have had on you, because I loved working with Bev, and there were many meetings that we go to, and when we were at the table, we were in unison, and we let people know what they needed to hear, even if they didn't want to hear it. But I loved her tenacity. I loved her, just her, strong position and her will to make sure that things were going to benefit not only the watershed, but the people in her community. So what was your experience like with Bev? And I mean, I haven't seen her in many years, and I hope to catch up with her soon. But what kind of experiences did you have with her?
Well, for Mountain Watershed Association celebrated its 30th anniversary or 30th year of existence last year. So this year we are 31 years young. And it started off, I think, just as Bev and a bookkeeper. So it was a very small group. And then obviously their tremendous board of directors that they maintain and continue to have throughout, the organization's history. It was like most watershed groups. It was formed on a ground roots, formed around a kitchen table back in 1994 because of a proposed deep mine that was in the community. And the group fought diligently and actually at that time stopped the deep mine from coming into their community. And then they thought, well, this is a great thing that we've got going on. We were able to stop this, but look at all the stuff that's already here, all the damage that has been done to the creek. Is there anything that we could do to restore the creek? So that's what we've been spending the last 30 years on, the last 30 years on restoring, and based on some of the past, what was the 303D list is now the Integrated Water Body Quality Report. We've restored over 75% of the Indian Creek sub-watershed to the Youghiogheny River watershed. Mountain Watershed Association's original existence was concerned only with the Indian Creek watershed. It wasn't until about 2003 where we joined the waterkeeper network and became the home of the Youghiogheny River waterkeeper, that we expanded our interest into the greater Youghiogheny watershed. So now we do the entire Yauk watershed in addition to, Indian Creek, which is just one tributary um, of Indian Creek. But yeah, and Bev, I mean, she has been an inspiration to work for. Just, she doesn't take no for an answer. Um, you tell her it can't be done, she was going to find a way. She found a way to get it done. And I really believe that is why our organization is so strong today, even though she retired back in 2020. So we've been, existing even beyond her role in leadership. No, she didn't go completely away, because she does serve on some of our committees that we still have within the organization. So she's still involved, just on a smaller scale. But yeah, she's definitely been a powerhouse in the abandoned mine reclamation community, and getting some unorthodox partners. I mean, we used the Natural Resource Conservation Service back in the day to get some of the work done. So yeah, she wasn't afraid to think outside the box and bring anybody in that she could get in to help get the work completed.
That's great. Yeah. I just remember meeting in an old post office. I don't know what town we were in, but I've come out to some meetings out there, and I remember early on in my career coming to a post office that I thought was their office. Is that still a place you're located in, or have you moved on from that?
We have moved down the road a little bit, but it is in the town of Melcroft, which is in Fayette County. Our office is probably maybe a half a mile up the road from where that post office still sits today.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so Carla, you're director of conservation, but your job is specific to some of the abandoned mine issues within the watershed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you expound a little bit on the AMD pollution in the watershed, and then also tell us some about your specific programs, your sampling, the systems you have constructed, and just all the abandoned mine reclamation stuff associated.
Yeah. Right now we have 5 passive treatment systems that are functioning in the watershed. 2 of those are currently being redesigned and will be going out for construction possibly as early as 2027. Those designs should be wrapping up the first part of 2026. So that would be our kelp and our mailcraft treatment systems. With our kelp treatment system, that was the first time that horizontal drilling was used to capture a mine discharge in the state of Pennsylvania for the purpose of treatment. So it's kind of a neat historical fact at that system. That was the kelp system is probably our largest discharge, and it does the most damage as far as the minerals coming in, high levels of iron, high levels of aluminum, that really had the largest impact on Indian Creek. So it's kind of like our big dog, and it had at one point had a flow of like 500 gallons per minute. Nothing compared to what you guys get to see over there in the anthracite region. But for us, it was a main contributor to getting the kelp treatments, the kelp, getting that discharge stopped and cleaned up. But in addition to having actual impacts on the stream itself, is both kelp and Melcraft had impacts to residents of the area, as the mine drainage was going into their homes, into their basements. So these people were living with anything they had in their basements, they had to prop up on cinder blocks and platforms because of the amount of AMD that was in their basements that they had to live with, until they went in and did that directional borehole drilling to lower. And they did that in order to lower the mine pools to get it so that the mine drainage wouldn't go out into the area residents' basements. That was like the first phase of that project. And then after that is when the actual passive treatment systems were constructed to then deal with what was remaining discharges for those 2 treatment systems. So those 2 are very similar and are very close together in distance. I'm going to say they're probably about a half a mile apart from each other. The only difference is that the Melcraft treatment system actually goes into Champion Creek, which is a tributary to Indian Creek. And it's also where Indian Creek changes from a high quality cold water fishery down to just a cold water fishery. So the impacts from the mine drainage actually, impacted the stream's designation as well, uh, starting, with Champion Creek coming in. So after you have Millcraft, then you have our kelp treatment system. You go further down the road, and you hit our Sagamore treatment system, and that was the first treatment system that Mountain Watershed Association constructed back in 2001. And that one's a very basic treatment system. We have two discharges that flow into that treatment system. One's acidic and one's alkaline. And honestly, they just pretty much mix together, and one treats the other one. And we have come out with a net alkaline discharge at the end. And we have, clean water with a decent pH coming through. And then we have our Galentine treatment system, which is just a little bit further down the road. And then we have one that's off of I'm trying to think the road off of one of the other roads that comes in to the watershed. It's not like directly on the main road like the other ones all follow Indian Creek Valley Road, which is Route 711. But this one is up on the hill, and all of our other discharges are named for a location, where our permapress discharge is named for the fact that it doesn't have any iron, so no iron is needed. So like the permapress setting on the iron, it was named after. That's how it got its name, because it's an all aluminum discharge. So we have those 5 treatment systems that currently have, or discharges that have treatment systems on them, and then we're also working on some other discharges in the watershed that need addressed as well. Yeah, so right now we do have a Growing Greener grant for our Marcelino Corial discharge, where we just signed some contracts with some consultants to, number one is to design a passive treatment system for the Marcelino discharge, and 2 is to fix the access road and develop a stream crossing so that we can actually get to the site with construction equipment when it comes time for the construction. Now that site was post 1984, so it is not eligible for the federal fundings that are available. So we have to use Growing Greener and other funding sources for that. But it was a bond forfeiture site, and I want to say back in 2016 that BAMR did come in and they put a low wall drain in, and that probably cut the issues as far as the iron and aluminum that are discharging from the site. They cut that about in half, but there's still a significant impact from that discharger that actually takes Newmeyer Run, which is a tributary to Poplar Run, and it makes it totally void of life due to the 2 discharges that were there. We also had the Rondell treatment system that was a pilot treatment system that also went out, was basically the headwaters in Newmeyer Run. But that system has now been removed because it was just there on a trial basis. So we're still looking for what opportunities we can do to reclaim that area as well, so if we can get Newmeyer Run and Rondell and Marceline cleaned up, that could potentially get us back to having fish again in Newmeyer Run like once upon a time.
I remember doing a lot of tours over the years through various conferences that we've come out to a number of those sites and saw pretty much they're all passive treatment systems, correct? There's not an active treatment plant in the watershed on any of those discharges you've talked about. And the fact that you've got this combination of iron and aluminum, and when we all talk treatment, we talk about there's various ways to do this, and you need to have land availability. You need to make sure you've got the right monitoring that you had in place probably before you made a decision to even go with those types of systems. And I imagine a number of people that you have through your staff and or volunteers that are doing the work has been a monumental effort to gather that upfront more relevant and current data, or you probably have built on a lot of your historical data collection too over the years. But are they doing that work, and is that what helped you lead to facing those challenges? Because I think that's going to be important for a lot of groups that we work with out there, because many of them don't have let alone enough people. They may not have the money or the funding just yet for what, the state might be calling a development plan at this point. And, in order to have a development plan, they need X number of months of data it collected and flow and chemistry and determine the loaded rates and things like that. Sounds like that's the stuff that you're working on. Just how important is that, so people know that they got to be thinking about this on the front end of any of the projects or considerations for how they might want to jumpstart improvements in their watersheds. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think early on, right as Watershed Association was, after they won their battle with the deep mine and starting to move to the restoration, they did a comprehensive restoration plan. So we went out and they identified all the discharges in our watershed. We worked with the Bureau of Abandoned Mine Reclamation to get us identified as a qualified hydrologic unit, opening us up to the funding that is available. So yeah, we have extensive history of water quality monitoring. For all of the discharges in our watershed that we continue up through today. The majority of our sites get sampled on a quarterly basis. There are a few that we actually do on a monthly basis as well. I mean, that looking at some of the stuff that we're a little bit more active with, like the Melcroft's treatment system, the kelp, because we're redesigning those, and then the Marcelino site, trying to get the justification for why those needed to be addressed. We had been doing monitoring on a monthly basis. But in addition to just the chemistry, which a lot of groups are familiar with, we also were doing some macroinvertebrate surveys where we did upstream and downstream of each of our treatment systems. We even still do those today. That way we can use that as another indicator to let us know that if there's something's wrong with one of our treatment systems, or if we're seeing an aquatic biologic, report down or upstream, and then we're seeing nothing downstream, then we know that we got an issue with one of our treatment systems and it's time to do something about it. But if we're seeing, what we want to see is, similar macroinvertebrate communities downstream and upstream. So that is the number one indicator. In the past, we've also done a little bit of fish monitoring too, to document, what's there. So we have a little bit more of an extensive monitoring program that probably than most, like you said, because we do have a staff that is capable of doing that than your volunteer groups. But we also do rely on some mini grant programs and stuff that we can get out and hire other people, because Mountain Watershed Association doesn't have the expertise to do the fish shocking on our own. So we usually hire out a consultant or another nonprofit organization to come out and help us and assist us in doing those surveys and those studies.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good number of people to have that probably most don't, I think, across the state. So, maybe it's like an exception to the rule, but you also have done a lot with that capabilities of each of those positions. And I'm sure that's what's led to some of the successes that you've had, and other groups are trying to, get at your level. But there's just hurdles and funding and issues that I'm sure, not only just preventing them, but they're trying, and everybody's trying to make sure to get to the same goal that you are all doing. And that's the hopes of having clean water and, improve quality of life for those communities around Melcroft and other smaller communities that are within the mountain watershed as a whole. So I think that's, while you still have the people to do that work, are you still, as an organization, are there some struggles, or are there other challenges that you're facing that might be worth noting?
Oh yeah, there's definitely some challenges. And I think some of the reason why we are capable of having those 15 full-time staff members and the one AmeriCorps member is because we have a diversity of issues that we address. There's about a staff of 2 or 3 of us that work on the abandoned mine reclamation issues. So there's like an education team, there's an outreach team, we have our advocacy team that are out doing, other things, but there's a core group of 3 or 4 of us that are doing the abandoned mine reclamation work. And so with our organization, that's, I think, one thing to notice, that we do have that diversity, and that allows us to be much bigger. But just because we have that, we expanded our horizons and our that helps us get the additional funding that we need to fund our entire office. But yeah, sometimes of the challenges of having a large office like ours is the more people you have, the more projects and the diversity of projects to work on. So because Mount Watershed doesn't just do abandoned mine drainage, it's just a fraction of some of the issues that we work on. And then obviously we have 15 staff members that we have to house. and we have to provide equipment for. So providing the ample working space and supplies can also be a challenging. And also we share one office vehicle. So there's 15 people, one office vehicle. So yeah, I mean, we're grateful to have that one vehicle because it was donated to us. But it's, it's a challenge. Everybody's trying to get their work done, and we have one office vehicle. We do drive a lot of our own personal vehicles out in the field a lot for all of our activities. So just because we are a larger group, we don't think that we don't face the same struggles that every other organization has. I mean, again, we are fortunate that we do have the full-time staff that could go out and do the operation and maintenance of our treatment systems on a regular scheduled basis, which helps our treatment systems last a little bit longer than those organizations that are all volunteer based.
Yeah, that's something that's been on our wish list too, is like a vehicle. Like I'm always like thinking, well, maybe Toyota or Ford or Chevy, somebody will donate a truck to us. That's my big wish. Or I'll take a beater truck because of some of the things that we have to do in terms of like our cleanups and our pickups. And I'm always looking to borrow a friend's truck to help haul the tires and things like that when we're doing these types of efforts in the watershed. But yeah, we're using our own personal vehicles too, just because there's no money for, even having a minivan or something, or just a truck or that can house, put 4 or 5 of us in. And we've had like an old Suburban years ago, but it just, it's just died on us. We couldn't put more money into it, and it was an older vehicle. So yeah, there are some challenges out there. So if there's any companies out there willing to donate trucks like they donate boats and stuff, I think we're open to taking one of those off your hands, even if it's an older model.
I'm willing to bet as well that just because, I think there's probably a misconception that just because Mountain Watershed Association's staff is 15 doesn't mean their funding is unlimited. They might have an endowment or a trust fund, or have several grants, but I'm willing to bet that you still have the same struggles as the rest of us, that you're always out there seeking more funding to pay for your projects, to pay for your staff. And I mean, it's just not as easy as
you're correct in that. We're always out there trying to find new funding sources, being creative with the funding sources that we have, trying to build in staff time into the projects as the project grants that we're doing. But we also do have private foundation funding to help us, connect the gaps.
Yeah, good point. So another personal question. What was one of your favorite projects throughout your career, whether that be at Mountain Watershed or otherwise, any time during your career?
I don't know if I have a favorite overall project, but I have a favorite aspect of my work. Is I really do enjoy getting out in the field and doing the water quality monitoring. Macros is probably macroinvertebrates is probably one of my favorite. We jokingly called the month of January Buguary in our office because when we have our collector's permit, all the bugs have to be reported back to the Fish and Boat Commission by the end of January. So I spent a lot of time under the microscope in the month of January to get all those, to fit the requirements so that we can get our collector's permit for the next program year. But doing the macroinvertebrates is kind of cool because the results that I get, I can tell you based on the bugs that are there, whether the stream is doing well or if it's being, if it's impaired or being, stressed by different types of pollution event, just, while I'm out in the field. And it's just something that I've seen grown. When I first started at Mountain Watershed, I had a couple classes in college where I did macroinvertebrates. And then I took a couple courses over at Powder Mill with Dr. John Morris from Clemson University, but I think, and worked with Dr. Ben Stout out in the field as well from Willing Jesuit University. But being able to see the progression over my 15 years at Mountain Watershed and what I could do at the beginning, how long it took me to do the identification to where I am today. When I go down and look at our sites, I'm definitely much faster. I really am more confident in my identification. So it's, I think, one of those things that, I really enjoy going to do the bugs because it's kind of like an instant, hey, I see where we've done our improvements in our streams because of our treatment systems. We're starting to see those good bucks. We're seeing those mayflies, those stoneflies, and those caddisflies that the fishermen want to, that the fishermen are looking for when they're going out to do their fly fishing. They get several calls from them saying, "Hey, what stream looks good? What kind of bugs are you seeing?"
What a cool what a cool perspective to have, to be the person who, because the first step of it, of course, is the actual chemistry change of the water, but it almost isn't realized until the bugs start coming back. And so you're right on the front line of that and get to be the first person to, bring it to everyone's attention. Okay, life is back. We're headed down the right path.
Yeah, because sometimes in this field, you don't get to see, you do all this work and you don't get to see the outcomes. Yeah. And this is one way where you actually get to see the outcome, that you're doing a good job and you have that documented proof.
And see, all along, I thought you were going to say your favorite event was like for the number of times that you and others have come to our statewide conference on abandoned mine reclamation through scholarships that we provide each year was the first year I won the cornhole tournament. I know you had to be there.
Shameless.
So
actually, I wasn't there that year.
You weren't there that year?
That was the year it was in Altoona.
Oh,
it was capped out, and we didn't get in time. So yeah,
we filled the event. See, and you missed out on the best event that was happening that day.
But that's my second. It has to be my second is coming to the conference here.
Well, not only do you come to the conference, but we'll say you're also serving on the conference planning committee, which we've been really we've benefited from adding you to our team over the last couple of years, and want to thank you for that publicly. What a great job you do for us on our planning committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we kind of like to close each episode like maybe a piece of advice that our community leaders and volunteers that we're working with and other nonprofits and community-based watershed organizations are working on with some respect to like capacity in their organizations and trying to become sustainable. So do you kind of have any words of wisdom you might like to share, or some just
So unfortunately, we got cut off there and we did not get to hear Carla's words of wisdom. Hopefully I do have that saved somewhere that we can play that at some other point. I see it's still running. Bobby, did we maybe exit out of there accidentally? I don't know. Bobby may be on mute. So, but anyway, normally, Bobby's changing.
All right. Well, we're live again this afternoon here, and I want to thank.
So that was a new experience for us, guys. Sorry about that. Let's see here. And I've got a friend in my background because I don't have my normal studio set up because we were doing something different than our normal live, but. So if I'm to remember, how we normally close these out is to give a plug that if you would like to sponsor episodes, you can do so at the Epcammer store. We still have sponsorships available for future episodes, and there are several different levels that you can sponsor at to help us out and keep our production going. And we do have episodes planned for the future. Let's see, we've got Kelly Williams planned for May 1st. And we have Kirsten Riley of the Choose Clean Water Coalition planned for June 5th, Friday, June 5th at 12 noon. And we will be live, not pre-recorded sessions, hopefully. That was just unique for today. So we do have those episodes planned for the future, and we're also accepting any interview. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, send a request to either Bobby or myself, and we'll see if we can't get you scheduled. So I think that's it. Bobby doesn't have a mic, so
Yes.
oh, he does. He does.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I apologize here. I may have hit a button that I shouldn't have, and still learning.
No, it's okay.
Well, we like to give let everybody know have a happy Good Friday here this week, and you will still be able to catch that live video that gets uploaded to the YouTube channels. That's since it's been pre-recorded. That Ann will probably post up there shortly. If you want to just scroll through towards the last 5 minutes or so, or 10 minutes of the video, you'll hear the parting comments from Carla, and we appreciate her for taking the time to pre-record that with us for a situation just like today. And we will look forward to seeing you next month on our podcast series. And thank you for showing up today.
Yep. Thank you guys. Bye.